Hi guys, Chris here from Rough of Cores, and in this video I'm going to be going through some of the best cards what you can utilise in a JT1 format. So the JT1 format is, if you don't know, it's a very quick game. Games can last no more than 10-15 minutes or something like that. And basically your core is set to 1000 HP and you can only utilise one colour. So the rules are pretty simple. There's a couple more nitty gritty bits to the side, but I'm not going to go through them in this video. But yeah, this video we're going to be looking at some of the best cards what you can utilise, and what we're going to be looking for is cards that don't necessarily go over a play cost of 3. Now because you can only utilise one colour, I'd say about 50% of the cards in the entire game is completely out of question. So people are going to be using like less meta cards and stuff like that. And it's extremely rare that you actually get 6 terrain cards out. That's how fast these games can be. So we're not really looking for anything at a high cost either. So we're going to be more so cheap and effective cards. We're going to be looking at small powerhouses and things that can help you with your battle setups and stuff like that. So without further ado, I've broken this video down into different colours. So I'm going to be putting some, if you look at the bottom of this screen now, there's going to be some chapters. If you're after a favourite colour, so hopefully that will be quite useful for you guys, and we're just going to get straight into the video. As you can tell, we've got a completely new room set up, so we're going to be, I might show it off in another video at some point. I've got pop figures everywhere, and you know, we've not got the pink floral wallpaper. Well, we do have it, it's just out of view. So yeah, let's get on with the show. So the first colour we're going to be going into is blue. It's probably one of the more less dominant colours in this format, but it is still really effective. And one thing I want to point out as well is we're not going to be showing you every single one cost unit in this game because there's just so many to choose from. I'm going to let you guys have a search and a rummage for those, but I'm just going to be showing you some of the really good cards what can help you with these cheap units. So on screen now, that way, the first card I want to show you is, if it works, Carry Away. So for a blue and a blue, don't forget you can only use one colour. You can have different colours in the cost, but obviously you can't utilise them colours. So in this case, this card will cost 2 blue to get out into play, and it's a battle card. One really useful thing in this format is denial during battle, and that basically means anything where you can retract units. There's going to be a lot. Every colour has got its own unique method of playing in this type of format, and blue is definitely more of a control thing. It's more about negation than anything else. So at the moment, red and white are the most aggressive colours in a JT1 format. So blue is a very good counter to red and white. So as you can see on the screen here, this will retract a unit from battle before damage is divided, and that damage is negated, which means if you throw a unit in and your opponent throws a unit in and they go to fight each other, let's say they both hit, you can throw in a Carry Away which will negate the enemy's attack power, meaning your unit will still damage it, but it will not damage you. So something like this in this format is absolutely horrendous for your opponent. It's really good for you. Chillwind Ghost, again, a 3 cost unit. You don't really want to be going above more than 3 cost unless it's got some kind of ability. So this one, when it enters play, it will borrow an enemy unit, which will basically render one defender useless on your opponent's turn. So obviously this is a 400 unit, but judging you've got other units out in play, which I'm which I'm really hoping you have done, by the time you've got a 3 cost out, then this is definitely something to look at. Then you've got Frost Season, another 3 cost, but this is your wonder card. So again, you're only going to have 1. I suppose at squeeze you could get 2 in a deck, because you're going to be running a lot less terrain cards in this format. So all non-elemental units and or non-blue units in play lose 200 attack. So if your opponent is playing anything other than blue, those units are going to lose 200 attack power. And don't forget, you're going to be having a lot of cheap units in this format, so 200 is going to be a lot of damage in this type of format, prevented from the opponent. Then you've got Icy Encasement. Any one unit has 0 attack power. So this is very similar. This is pretty much Carry Away, just a different type of card. So you know, you could have 2 Icy Encasements and 2 Carry Aways, and they basically do the same type of thing. Shockwave. This is actually quite meta in normal games, but this is going to be even more so meta in JT1. So return any one enemy unit back to that player's hand. Again, this will again remove a defender from your opponent's side of the field, meaning that you can get more damage in. Don't forget the opponent has only got 1000 HP, so getting those defenders out of the way is one way around winning JT1. Then you've got Ocean Serpent. Now this is more of a late game card, so like I said, games don't usually last more than 5 or 6 turns per player, but if you do happen to just, this could be one of those power cards that can really help you win the game. So for 4 blue, when it enters play you get to draw 2 cards, and it's got a 400/400 with the option of becoming a 500/400 as well. Whack that on a terrain card with an attack buff, you're going to be looking at some severe damage towards your opponent. That's more than half of your opponent's HP already. Pardon me. A 1 cost, fresh spring water, recover 300 HP to your core, but don't forget that's going to be 1/3 of your total life, and you get to draw a card, so this is going to be really useful in this format. Extinguish, like I said, red and white are going to be the most popular colours in this format, so if your opponent is playing red, well obviously you don't know they're going to be playing red, but if you just happen to be playing red because it's popular, then this card will basically negate any red action, response or battle card, which can really save you in a pinch, and it cannot be responded by red cards either, so blue versus red, blue's going to win. Miscoordinate, a card from GVE, change the target of an action or battle card. This is going to be so damn useful, like I said, especially if your opponent's playing red. Red is mostly burn. If you can miscoordinate a burn spell towards the opponent's core card, then they're going to be in for a lot of trouble. Glacial Elemental, this is one more of the late game ones. It's a 4 cost for a 400 and a 700 HP units. So already compared to the Ocean Serpent, this is more of a tank than anything else, and if you can get a tank in JT1, then you're going to be on for a winning game. And if you choose to destroy it, you can burrow a unit that your opponent has in play. So this basically means, again, they're going to lose a defender. This is basically what blue is. It's all about getting defenders out of the way so that your other units can swing in. So and you can choose to do that anytime during your main phase as well. So yeah, it's pretty good. Conspicuous Heron, because why not? It's a 1 cost, 200/200 unit with a draw ability, so it's not just any normal 1 cost unit. And finally, Ria's Coil. So this is another counter spell, which is just showing its face in DVD Part 2. It will always resolve, meaning your opponent cannot counter it. Any enemy action battle card has no effect, and then you get to deal 100 damage to the enemy core for each element in its cost. So like I said before, players aren't really going to be playing a lot more than 3 cost, so this will counter a card and deal approximately a third of a unit of a core's HP to the opponent, which again, combine that with some of the other cards you've just seen, this can be quite deadly and obviously a game finisher. So we're going to be moving on to a different colour now. See if we can find. So we're going to be moving on to black. Now, there's not as many cards in the black set, but they are quite useful. quite. How can I don't know. I can't even think. As you can tell, it's late. I've got my gown on. So first one, 2 black, a Conjuring Witch. When she enters, you get to look at your opponent's hand. There's nothing better than knowing what's in your opponent's hand. There's nothing better than knowing what's in your opponent's hand during a JT1 match, because that will give you an extremely heavy-handed insight into what your opponent is going to be playing, and of course what you can watch out for. Then you've got Undying Tomb, one of PDF TCG's favourites cards. It's a wonder. Again, it's a 3 cost, so you don't really want to be playing more than 1, possibly 2 of this in your deck. And basically, if one of your units would die or leave play, you can play its cost and return it back to your hand. So this is definitely something more so revival and prevention of loss, which is what pretty much some of the black cards do anyway. So and because you're going to be using a lot of cheap units, if you can play a lot of 1 cost, it's going to be extremely easy just to lose a unit and get one back in. This will only trigger twice per turn, however, because it is a triggered ability. Next up we've got Grave of Promise. So this is another revival card. If a unit would die in the stack, you may destroy this relic and return that unit back to your hand. So this is kind of a safety net. If you've got a good unit you don't want to lose, you can throw it on a Grave of Promise, and then when it does go to die, you will, instead of sacrificing the unit, you will sacrifice the grave, and it will go back to your hand, ready for you to utilise once again. Especially if it's got an enter ability, that's quite a nice touch. Moving on to a power unit. So for 4 black, it's a 400 and a 600 HP, and it has a static ability which says if it's placed on your core, it gets 100 attack and HP, making it 500, 700 for a 4 cost. That's quite meaty for a JT1 format. And of course it's got an abundance of abilities as well, especially on a 5 or a 6. Destroy a weapon and destroy a relic that your opponent has in play. Weapons are going to be quite useful in this format as well, especially if you can get some on your weaker units to make them more powerful. So any weapon removal is really appreciated in this format. Then we've got Dismembering Blow. Deal 200 damage to a unit in play. If that unit dies this turn, you remove it from the game instead. So that's a nice game removal exile card. Deathly Smog. Deal 100 damage to all units and cores in play. So you're more so going to use this for the cores in play section, because if your opponent is basically scraping the game away and they keep throwing out defenders, then this will kill the opponent and win you the game. Soul Siphon, 3 cost, deal 300 damage to a unit in play, then recover 300 HP to your core. So again, that is like a third of your core's HP, can definitely pull you out in a pinch. Soul Reap, for 2 black, deals 200 damage to a unit in play. If that unit dies by the end of the turn, that player loses 200 HP and discards a card. So obviously that's like an end of turn trigger. You could probably combo this with what did we have? Dismembering Blow, if you've got the four elements to play. So you know, for 4 elements, you could kill a unit, exile it from the game. Your opponent could lose 200 HP and discard a card. That's just for 4 elements. So that's quite a nice little combo. And finally, the last card we've got is Pandora. One of the new cards for DVD Part 2. She costs 4, which you shouldn't really be playing more than 4 at push. But she's a 400-500 unit. But the good thing about her is that she has the new Afterlife ability, which means if she's dead and in your graveyard or your discard pile, or whatever you want to call it, you can pay 5 black elements and return her back to your hand. So she's just one of them cards that keeps coming back and coming back until your opponent deals with it accordingly. Now we're going to be moving on to green. There's quite a few green cards actually. I'm going to run through these I'm going to get through these a bit faster because I'm starting to run out of time. Decay. Destroy a weapon or relic unit in play. Goblin Rockkeeper. Once it's in play, you can discard a card from your hand to deal 200 damage to an enemy unit in play. Again, that's going to be nice because you're going to be having a lot of weak units for your opponent to pick from. Pumping Strength. If you're playing goblins or demons, they will gain 300 attack power but lose 100 HP. For a 1 cost card, that's actually really powerful. A Woodland Crillisia. More so for its HP, it's a 100 attack power but it's got 400 HP, so it's more of a tanky unit than anything else. So, you know, it's definitely worth putting some of them in a green deck. Earthen Armour. Unit gains 300 HP and minus 100 attack. So that is a more, you know, it kind of turns the unit into a tank basically. Big Stick. There's going to be a lot of weapons played in this format. This will basically clog up a space on your opponent's field. It will give them attack buff, however, so that's kind of a bad side about it, but it will prevent your opponent from putting more weapons on that unit. So that's a good idea. And then following buyback control, we will also have Inconvenient Boulder. Again, it's extremely rare to have a game with 6 terrain cards out on one player's field. This could actually make it really make your opponent struggle, because for 2 green you can clog up a terrain card that your opponent has in play. So you know you've got Inconvenient Boulder to clog up the terrain cards, which means the opponent cannot play units or relics on it. And then you've got the Big Stick, what will clog up your opponent's units and stop them from having weapons equipped. So it's quite 2 nice little cards there. Next up for 3 cost, we've got the Fake Crillisia King, one of the DVD 2 specials. It's a 400 unit, and you get to draw a card when it enters play. If you roll a 6, you get to recover 200 HP to your core, so that's a 5th of your HP. We've got Slag Hammer. This can only be equipped to a unit with at least 300 base attack, so that's without anything else buffing it. The equipped unit gains 300 attack, so again that's quite a nice attack jump, but an attack buff for 2 cost. And then you got 1 cost, any 1 unit in play gains 300 attack power. Don't forget, this game has got a lot of trample like overspill damage, so if you attack with a 700 points worth of damage and your opponent has only got 200 HP health, you know, that remaining 500 will go to the enemy core. So green is a lot about, as you can probably already tell, pumping a unit's attack power to get that overflow damage in against your opponent. Strong Corollissian, you should have seen this guy coming, really, it's an absolute monster. For a 1 green cost, it's got a 300 attack power, 400 HP, so it's a tank in itself. And you can destroy it at any time during your main phase to give one of your other units 200 attack power. Moving on, Swamp Elemental. It's not great, but I kind of wanted to include it, because if you roll a 6 and there's a weapon in the stack directly opposite, then you get to destroy that that unit. Not that unit, Jesus, that weapon. Next one is Goblin Sharp Sword. So it's a 400 unit for 3 cost, so it's not bad. But it does have a static ability that says as long as there's an element on this stack, this unit gains 100 attack. So for a 3 cost, this is potentially 500 attack power. So definitely consider putting this in, especially if you've got like pumping strength, what will give it another 300 attack boost. Wall of Thorns. Now this is just a defender more than anything. 100 attack power, but it's got 700 HP and it cannot attack. If it rolls a 6, the units directly adjacent to the stack gain 100 HP, so that's a nice little buff right there. You never know when you need that extra 100 HP. Wild Strike. For a 1 cost, you can play a Corollissian card from your hand as though it had the Ambush ability. If you don't know, Ambush basically means during battle you can play a unit and surprise your opponent with a defender or an attacker after the time they have chosen to declare attackers or blockers. If that unit is declared as an attacker, it gains 200 attack power for the battle. So let's say you're going to attack with a Corollissian. And your defender chooses not to defend with anything, you can you can ambush another unit in, and because it's attacking at the same time, it will not only will it deal damage and become unblocked, it will also gain a 200 attack power as well. So you know, you could potentially be looking at about 800 damage or something like that in one attack phase. Vine Drop. So retract any 1 unit from battle this turn. If it was a non-green unit, its owner discards a card. I forgot how powerful this card was, especially in JT1. Again, retraction during battle in JT1 is a big thing. Earthquake. Before battle, choose 1 enemy unit. It cannot be used as a defender this turn. Destroy a relic your opponent has in play. Again, it's got 2 lovely little abilities here. You have to play this on your main phase, however, you cannot spring this on your opponent during battle. But that's a really nice ability. Twister, 3 cost. This is actually our last green card. For 3 green, you could also use this in a white deck, to be fair. So 3 green or 3 white. You get to draw 2 cards and your opponent discards 2 cards. So don't forget, your hand sizes are going to be quite small with you playing so many cheaper units. So this is definitely a card to look out for. Moving on to red, the burn colours. Oh man. So we've got a few red ones. Lava Soak. 2 red. Deal 300 damage to an enemy unit. You may discard a volcano terrain from your hand. If you do, the above value is now 600. This can basically decimate any unit in play. Violent Slash. 3 red. Deals 200 damage to a unit in battle this turn. If that unit survives, it is retracted from battle and contributes 0 damage this battle. A little bit unusual for a red card to retract, however it is there and it is available for use. Again, retraction, negation, and then you can deal damage to the enemy unit quite safely. It could easily kill off a unit. 1 cost, it could be red or white for a 200, 100 unit. Okay, it's not got the greatest HP, however, it only misses on a 1, so you know you could get this out on turn 1 and then really pump it up for that early damage. Rolling Fire, 3 costs, a little bit of a later card to play. 400 unit, however when it dies it deals 300 damage directly to the enemy core. definitely not something you want on your opponent's side of the field. Definitely not. Eruptive Fissure, not only is it meta in normal play, however it's going to be meta in JT1. And like I said, it's a 4 cost, so it is a bit pushy whether you're going to get this out in play or not, but you get to destroy any stack of cards in play. Will it be meta? Maybe. Ball and Chain, 2 red. This weapon can only be equipped to enemy units, and that unit loses 200 attack power. Pretty simple. Uncontrolled Explosion deals 200 damage to all units in play, including your own, so be careful. However, if you manage to poke at your opponent's units, this could very easily kill them all off. Wrath and Fury, another 3 cost, deals 400 damage to one target. That includes the enemy core. So be careful if your opponent's playing red. If you're playing against red, hope to Christ that you're going to be playing blue. Blast, 200 damage to one target, nice easy card. Explosive Elemental, late game card, 500, 400 for 4 units. If that unit is placed on a volcano terrain, it gains an additional 100 attack power, so for 4 elements this could potentially become 600 base, and then the volcano would also give it an extra 100, so that would become 700 power. Shatter, destroy any weapon in play. Hidden Dynamite, 2 red, however it's a battle card, so it doesn't seem like much, 200 damage to any unit in battle, but because it's a battle card you can really spring this on your opponent as well. Desert Wyvern, 3 red, 400 units, and when it attacks, if it occupies a desert, it gains 100 HP, so it's got like a nice little defensive buff on itself. So for 3 cost it could potentially be 500 HP, which is quite useful. Cave Dweller, a new card for DVD2. It only costs 2 red and it has got the ambush ability, and then if it was used to ambush into play and it's defending, it also gains an extra 100 HP. So it's got 400 attack power, so 400 attack power with the ambush ability for 2 elements is actually a really nice little addition to any JT1 deck. Goblin Deep Miner, 1 red or 1 green. The unit cannot attack, however the terrain here generates an extra element. It can defend, however, so it has the, if you roll a 6 it becomes 300 HP. For a 1 cost and making your terrain cards generate extra elements, you really cannot moan at that. 3 cost, Lava Tongue Dragon, 400 units. When it attacks and if it's placed on a volcano terrain, it deals 200 damage to any unit in play. And then with your roll a 6, it deals another 200 damage to a unit in play. Smouldering Embers. This is a relic card for 3 elements. Your opponent cannot target the unit on this stack with red action battle response cards. I threw this in because if your opponent is playing red, like I said, it is going to be a popular colour in this format. This will shield one of your units from red spells, or red cards, should I say. Eternal Flame, a wonder card. So it is a little bit expensive, it's a 4 cost, but again you could probably get away with 1 of these. Whenever your opponent draws a card, you may deal 200 damage to their core. So again, at the start of every turn basically, they will lose 200 HP, which is a 1/5 of their core's health, and that will basically win you the game after 4 or 5 turns. Fire Whirl for 4 red. This will deal 500 damage to a unit or enemy core. 500 damage to the enemy core, you can't grumble at that, it's 50% of their health. Brazier, for 1 red, it's a relic. Red units on this stack gain 200 attack power. That's means so you can throw this on a cheap little Krillesian and it will become quite the beast. Yurta, Staff of Iris. We're throwing this in because Iris is actually in the back end of this list. So equipped unit gains 100 attack. If the equipped unit is red, which every card will be in your deck, it gains 200 attack instead. If this is equipped to a named unit called Iris, you increase her base attack by 50% and her non-battle damage is doubled. So basically it's her when she deals damage. This does work for her when you say if you roll a 4 or a 5 and it says deal X amount of damage, deal 400 damage to something, this will double it to 800 damage. So this is definitely something to combo in with a copy of Iris. Flare, 1 cost, 200 damage. Oil Fire Trap, you can only destroy this relic when your enemy chooses defenders, and when you do destroy it, you get to deal 300 damage to 1 defending unit. City Celebrations, red or black, draw 2 cards, cannot go amiss with that. Heatwave, a new DVD special. It's a wonder for free. Whenever you successfully play a red action, response or battle card, deal 200 damage to the enemy core. Throw this in with some direct core damage and that's an extra 200 on top. It could very easily win you the game. That's it. And then finally moving on to white. Oh, we still got some terrains to go through yet. Foresight, your opponents this turn. White is all about buffing your opponent's attack power. So your units this turn gain 100 attack for 1 white. Xanthe will give all of your units 100 HP. Defensive Tactics, your units this turn gain 200 HP. Lancer, 300 units, 2 cost. Shield Guard, again a tanky unit for 1 cost. Holy Light, deal 300 damage basically to any unit. Castle Archer, it has the ranged ability which is very useful in JT1. Judgment, destroy any 1 unit on the field. Thunder Elemental, 400 attack power with the ambush ability. Hunting Shock, 4 cost with the 500 attack power and an ambush ability. At the end of your turn you can return it back to your hand. Pathetic Kill, 1 cost, 1 white or black, destroy any 1 unit with a play cost of 1. Walls, so if you've got another one next to it, they both gain 100 HP and they can switch places without the hindrance of not being able to attack. Power. Electro Mage, so 3 cost, she's 400 attack power. You can discard a terrain card from your hand to deal 200 damage to any 1 target, including the enemy core. Knight of the Keep, 3 white, it's a 300 unit, and when it defends it gains 100 HP. If you roll a 6 it gets 100 attack power, so it could potentially become 400 for a 3 cost unit. Ella, 1 white 1 green, enter, draw a card and recover 100 HP. 5 or a 6, draw a card. Border Defenders, another tanky unit, it cannot attack, however it always hits when it defends. It's got 500 HP. Diamond in the Rough, free to play, so it can be used in any deck, well any white or blue deck. You get to generate a 3 element. Field Maceman, 200 for a 1 cost, and when it attacks it gains 300, it becomes 300 attack power, so you can't grumble at that on turn 2. Chain Lightning, 3 cost, deal 300 damage to any 2 different enemy units in play and then your opponent discards a card. White Mage, healing type unit, so for 2 costs it's 300, and when she enters you get to recover 400 HP to your core, that's nearly half of your core's total HP. Twister, we've seen that. Mana Net, remove an element of any 1 terrain that your opponent has in play. That terrain does not generate an element at the start of that opponent's next turn. That's extremely useful at the start of any JT1 game, because that will also enable you to play an extra unit before they are able to do so. Golden Nugget, generate 3 white elements, very useful. Storm Spider, 3 cost, 400 attack power with the ambush ability, and when it enters you get to deal 300 damage to any 1 unit in play. That's quite a beast. Thunderbolt, 200 damage to the enemy core. That player then discards a card, can't grumble at that, and that's it. So that's the main colours out of the way. We've got a couple of terrain cards, only about 6 of them. So you've got Abandoned Castle. You're not really going to be using elements so much, so the unit on this terrain gains plus 200 HP. Mountain Tunnels, which will protect your units from non-dragon and non-wyvern units. Thornfield, it generates 2 green elements. You cannot play units or relic cards on this terrain, so that's nice early game. Rose Meadow, the unit on this terrain loses 100 attack and HP, however whenever a unit is played on the terrain you get to recover 100 HP to your core, so you just keep playing units on the Rose Meadow. Lonely Cropfield, your humans cannot be targeted by red or black action cards. And Cliffs of Haran, the green units on this terrain cannot be targeted by enemy wonder effects, which is quite nice. And then a couple of colourless cards. So you've got Alluring Scent, any 2 elements to play it. Look at the top 3 cards of your deck and put them back in any order. Ancient Power, 3 cost, deal 300 damage to an enemy unit or core. If you have charged your own core this turn, instead deal 500 damage. That's quite powerful. Elementary Consumption. Choose a unit with less than 400 attack power and remove any amount of elements that you have in play. That unit gains 100 attack power for each element removed for the rest of this battle. So that could be quite a finishing move, that could be. That's pretty much every card. Obviously, the only one we've got left are the mages, the GVE mages, should I say. They cost 3 elements each, however they've got a shed ton of abilities to utilise, which I believe are all going to be really useful in a JT1 match. So guys, that's half an hour. It does not feel like half an hour, but there will be chapters to the video down below. Hopefully this has given you guys a little bit of insight and some ideas, because I do want to try and get some JT1 I do want to get some JT1 tournaments in play at some point as well. So if you're interested in a JT1 tournament, head on over to challenge.com and show your interest, or just let me know on the comment section down below. And if you have managed to make it to the end of this video, then I thank you very, very muchly. Alright guys, I shall see you in my next video.